episode 4 of GMA Behind the Fight podcast, Gods of Martial Arts, a groundbreaking MMA promotion that celebrates fighters as celebrities in a way that's never been done before, while celebrating ancient martial arts traditions throughout the world, namely Cambodia, Kun Khmer. We've got the Lethwei fighters out of Myanmar, and this is the stage where we put it all together. And for the last 2 years, folks, I'm talking to you, Vietnam. Gods of Martial Arts and other promotions here in Vietnam have gained international recognition and exposure. And today's guest is evidence of that. Coming all the way from Las Vegas, Nevada, we have today Johnathan Lytle. Johnathan, your first time in Vietnam, how do you feel?
Man, it's amazing to be here. I wasn't expecting how beautiful this city is. The people are so welcoming and so nice and friendly. It's felt like a home away from home, like I've just been adopted by a second family while being here. Loving it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's you never forget your first time, in Vietnam, and it's a place that a lot of people from where we're from in America, it's very different than what they expect, and it's you feel at home, just like you said. So, Johnathan, what an honor it is to have you come and visit here in Vietnam. It's been what, 3 years?
About 3 years, I think. Yeah.
Since the last time we saw each other. Take us back to that moment.
So I remember it was in Colombia, in Medellin, Colombia. We were at Gracie Baja. Shout out to Professor Carlos. Amazing academy, has a lot of people passing through there. Probably one of the most visited places in the world.
True.
But you were training there. I remember wrestling. We were both blue belts at the time.
Yes.
We had a nice exchange that day and then became friends ever since. That's one thing I can say about jiu-jitsu. You'll become friends and meet friends from around the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, we went there and we did some rolls. Carlos, I mean, that was definitely, that gym was recommended to me by a guy in Dominican Republic.
Okay.
Who had, because I was living in Dominican Republic before going to Colombia, and actually, the way that people talked about the Colombians, because I'd already lived in Vietnam before Colombia, and what I loved about Vietnam was the hospitality and just how nice and sweet the people are here. And people described the Colombians in a similar way that I remember the Vietnamese. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm going to Colombia. And my friend Brian from Dominican Republic said, you got to go to Carlos's place. And that's where I met you.
Yeah, Carlos. I had the experience myself. I got to, it's actually where I met Craig Jones for the first time. I got to hang out with him.
Really?
Yeah, so Craig Jones had put on his Instagram, he was in Colombia. I was like, I'm in Colombia too, let's hang out. He was like, oh really? I'm like, yeah man, let me show you where I train at. So we hung out that night and sure to his word, he showed up.
Wow.
To the next class with only 4 hours of rest. And he rolled with everybody. He even answered some questions. It was crazy. So, I mean, you have Padilla from Gracie Baja, also ADCC vet goes down there.
Yep.
I think Colombia has a lot of people come through, and it's just such a great place to train at. Me personally, I've trained in South Africa at Gracie Baja.
Yeah.
I've trained with the Ministry of Defense in Abu Dhabi, 600 black belts from around the world. That place, they always win the AJP tour. I've trained in Dubai at one of Hoyler's schools.
Okay.
I've trained in Costa Rica at Celsius, trained in Mexico, just trained in a lot of countries, just left Japan before coming here, training with Imanari. So when I'm in Brazil, I live with Grandmaster Helson Gracie and his family and train with them. So I believe international training, and that's why I'm excited to be here.
Yes.
Especially my first trip to Vietnam, to be able to train with the Vietnamese
Yes.
and see how they roll and how they carry themselves on and off the mat is huge for me to learn.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
it's very clear. We can see the passion that you have for martial arts, especially as it applies to, experience internationally and from around the world. And that's what our audience today is so excited to have you on the show. But let's back up a little bit and how you started martial arts. What got you into martial arts? What was your first impressions and your first challenges? Take us through that.
So I think it was stages for me as a kid. Like most American kids, we grew up watching Bruce Lee. So just seeing that, and then if I don't know if many of you have seen, it's called The Last Dragon. Because Bruce Lee had Enter the Dragon. This is The Last Dragon with Bruce Leroy. If you haven't seen it, check it out.
Okay.
Show enough, definitely worth a great martial arts flick. So then watching Brandon, his son, and the Enter the Crow, different martial arts always had me intrigued. So as a kid, I think about 10 years old, started doing Kung Fu, then karate. In high school, got into wrestling, some boxing, joined the military, started doing Muay Thai, Judo, and Jiu-Jitsu while I was in South Korea. Won the silver medal at the National Games for Muay Thai when I was in the military there. Learned a lot about myself being exposed on the mat to young fighters, especially women fighters in Judo when I was in South Korea.
Yeah.
I was at least a good 100 pounds on a lot of the women, and they were able to throw me around and handle me with ease and really open my mind to like, wow, technique conquers all. There's nothing that's like the ultimate strategy would be having great technique. So
Yeah.
I really fell in love with like, I want to do martial arts for my life.
Yeah. And what was, like, you started martial arts at around 10,
Yeah.
correct? So from like 10 to 15 years old, what was your primary martial art that you were most active?
I would probably say Taekwondo. Taekwondo,
Okay.
I think I spent the most time as a young student because it was kind of close to where I lived and just, it intrigued me with the flashy footwork. I always
Okay.
liked kicks. Even today, if you watch just the match I just had, I prefer kicks are always my thing.
Yeah, I remember that match. Yeah, we all remember that one. That was interesting. So when did you, between the ages of 10 and 15 years old, did you compete in Taekwondo?
No competitions, just training, because I also, my main thing besides martial art was football. So I played a lot of football on and off season. So martial arts kind of complemented what I was already doing. But then now martial arts has become what I am doing.
Yes. and you grew up your entire life in Las Vegas, is that correct?
Yep, in Las Vegas.
Wow.
So I left when I joined the military, and then I guess I'm kind of home now, maybe a total of like 6 to 8 weeks out of the year, but most of the time it's been around the world, training, traveling.
Wow.
I want to see the world. I want to train around the world. I want to represent Helson's Gracie Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu around the world.
That's fantastic. Absolutely. So after 15, you began as a striker, as a Taekwondo,
Yes.
kicks and stuff like that, which is actually the exact opposite of me. I'm not very good at striking and kicking and things like that. When were you first introduced to the grappling sports, and when did you really understand the significance of wrestling and jiu-jitsu?
First really was introduced to grappling in high school, my freshman year. Shout out to Clark High School, the Chargers. Man, my coach at that time, still love you forever, Coach Marshall, but man, he was hitting on our English teacher, who was this fine Spanish woman. I'm like, man, wrestling coaches always seem to have a way to be talking to teachers. But yeah, he was a cool young guy. I think he was the PE coach. She was an English teacher, but he broke down wrestling and made it so much fun. Like, it seemed like all the football, even some of the basketball players, a lot of the jocks who were like, I guess you could call the alpha jocks, we all wanted to throw each other around on the mat. I think wrestling really builds confidence. But jiu-jitsu was the next level for me of confidence, because wrestling, our job was to get on top, to get the point, to score, to hold down, but jiu-jitsu teaches you to finish somebody.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so having that transition, and like, I still have to make it become more second nature versus my striking, because I guess I've done striking for so long.
Yes.
It just naturally becomes who I am, but jiu-jitsu would save me from looking like this. So that's where I'm like, yeah, I want to make it more natural for myself to grapple, and that way I can be more efficient on how I finish a fight instead of having to strike my way through it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's putting all of these martial arts together is what the beauty of MMA is all about.
Yes.
You know, and it's just so interesting that everyone kind of has their main martial art. You know, for me, it's obviously wrestling. You know, so I have to kind of adapt to that. So, talk to us a little bit about your wrestling experience in high school, briefly. Any competitions and things like that that really stand out to you?
Always went. My junior year was actually undefeated, but then
Oh, wow.
took some time away from wrestling because I went and got a job. Ended up having a lot going on in life, so ended up working my senior year. So before we got into like playoff season, ended up having to leave the team. But before then, yeah, freshman, sophomore year, the wins, the losses.
Yeah.
The thing I think I remember most about wrestling that kind of got me like, man, this is serious, is the weight cutting. Cutting weight literally hours before the match and then still going out there with no stamina drain. It taught me about, no, you'll be prepared in advance. No more last minute weight cuts. So that actually helped me with IBJJF when I compete, because sometimes I'll be above where I should be and I'm like, start cutting weight now.
Yes. What weight class do you wrestle in high school?
High school, I wrestled at 145, 155, and then 165.
Oh, wow. Wow, interesting. Yeah, cutting weight, man, it's just, yeah, you know, these days, I used to cut a bunch of weight in high school, you know, sometimes like 20 pounds, which is about 10 kilos.
I think that's what I do now still for IBJJF.
But, yeah, now it's like, now I just try to stay lean and not eat as much sugar because I don't want to cut weight.
I think that's with me. The sugar comes from my alcohol intake, and I'm horrible on it. At least I'm honest. I'm like, got to drink less when preparing for matches, and yeah, a lot of things. I can eat correct. I'll have a great eating, even a good training schedule, but I know what it is, and I just got to tighten up my ship.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about now your grappling experience, how you got started, and your experience, you know, around the world. So when was the first time you did jiu-jitsu?
Under John Frankel, out in Apgujeong, South Korea, his first school that he had.
So this was when you were in the military?
2007.
Wow.
So I trained under him for about 9 months and then ended up going back to America. Didn't have time to train, started training again. I've been training now 6 years, so October of 2019, decided to walk into a Gracie Humaita.
Okay.
So at that time, Tony Real, who was a Helson Gracie black belt, was there. He would sign me up, taught most of my classes with him. It was, the schools are all out there under Mika Sapili. So he's a 6th degree black belt under Hoyler. So Tony eventually went to go open up his own school, and I ended up following Tony because I like the Helson Gracie style of self-defense. My jiu-jitsu is more self-defense based. I can do competitions. I finished second at U.S. Nationals or American Nationals at IBJJF. I've won competitions in Colombia, plan to compete again in Colombia, looking for World Masters to hopefully podium. But Helson Gracie's jiu-jitsu, man, he calls it no holds barred. It's really, well, the first jiu-jitsu I'm holding, blocking, and he's like, yeah, what if somebody headbutts you? That just blew my mind away. So like, teaches headbutts. He teaches a lot of things that aren't traditionally taught. And it's like, yeah, if you really had to defend yourself to escape. Remember, it's not always about re-engaging. I want to finish them. Okay. Your job in self-defense is to get yourself safe, and that's not always re-engaging somebody.
Wow.
So I really agree with the principles of Helson Gracie Jiu-Jitsu.
That's fantastic. Yeah, it sounds like that was really a moment that changed the way you looked at martial arts and how you apply it.
Oh, yes, for sure. Because I always like, man, if I did this, if I was to get into a fight and strike, and that's why I was so happy with how the MMA match went, it became a striking match. And then after about 24 hours of thinking on it, I'm like, I won. But when you look at my hand, which I broke, look at my face, which looks broken, I broke my nose. I'm like, but did I really win? And that's the true Gracie, the true style that Helio himself would pass to his sons is you aren't supposed to take damage. A prime example of that you see with Mr. Utah when he takes on Pedro Sauer. Pedro, minimum damage, keeps him at bay, doesn't get hit. He strikes with the legs, but different. It's side kick and then clinches. I tried the clinch. I didn't get a good clinch. He was able to get away. So as we were breaking from the clinch, I was throwing uppercuts. So
Wow.
it's like,
Yes.
if I can't clinch, I at least know what's the follow-up, because you're going to be in a position fighting off the clinch to where I'm going to be able to throw an uppercut.
Yeah, yes. It's so interesting just to hear you speak about it. Okay, so yes, so over the past, we met each other briefly 3 years ago. We may have rolled 3 or 4 times, but we stayed in touch with one another. And over the past 2 years, you have seen, what we've been doing here, and not only grappling in Vietnam, but mixed martial arts, MMA promotions, and things like that. So I'm very interested, John. What was it like seeing it from the outside, looking on social media? What was going on here in Vietnam, and what was the moment that you were like, hey, this is a pretty cool thing to see?
It was exciting to see the community, because I was like, oh, there's a lot of Muay Thai going on. Then they're like, oh, I saw some grappling. I'm like, so there's a lot of martial arts going on in Vietnam that I didn't ever think about. I always think of pho when I think of Vietnam. I mean, I love the food, but I just didn't think there was a big martial arts community.
Yes.
And so to see it start growing and to watch it develop, I'm like, man, I would love to go down there and just be a part of that. I mean, first day here, watching the MMA, they had a grappling match, and they actually had a women's kickboxing match.
Yep.
So seeing this was like, oh, that's cool to see, in such a young crowd, very excited about athletes, their peers competing, like to see that the up and coming generation here is very open and aptitude is very high for being able to be taught various martial arts. I think that's pretty cool.
Absolutely. And this is, in my limited experience, the reason why Vietnam is such a special place is because, they're so open to learn from foreigners. They love learning from foreigners. So like the expats and the local Vietnamese get along very well together, and we all work together to create more opportunities and grow the sport. So, unlike other countries, it's you go to jiu-jitsu gyms, and it's very like you have like where all the foreigners go to this gym, and then all the locals go to this gym, and then maybe you see 2 or 3, but here we're very interconnected and very much intertwined, and for that reason, John, that's why we are the Vietnamese grappling community and MMA, which is tightly interconnected, is exploding.
Yeah, that was interesting when I stop and think about it. We met in Colombia, and you're here in Vietnam.
Yeah.
You have an American and then a South American having an MMA match in Vietnam.
Yes, that's right.
Like, worlds collide, worlds come together right here in Vietnam. So I'm like, this is just so much opportunity here, especially with the weather is good, the vegetation, just
Yes.
it has a scene like something out of a Street Fighter film where you could
Yes.
just be out here enjoying, even watching everything get ready for, Gods of Martial Arts is just, wow.
Gods of Martial Arts is just absolutely groundbreaking, and the world doesn't even know what's about to happen. It's that significant. And it's like, if you think about this, the Gods of Martial Arts has only had 3 events so far, and it's already gained international attention. And it's because of the thoughtfulness and the cinematography and the presentation of these fighters. And one of the things what I love about this is, like, let's say you have someone who's never seen an MMA fight. They don't even know what it is. They don't know anything about the fighters. They don't know anything. Before the fight even happens, they have interviews with the fighters. The fighters tell their stories, and so as they're coming out, like during the fight, the audience can see the story of the guy in the red corner and the blue corner, right? So, but by the time they get into the ring, right, the audience already knows is emotionally connected to the fight.
I see where you're going, yeah.
And that is what's special about it, right? The first time they ever had, I believe it was August 10th of last year. That was their first event ever. And then the second event was in October, and then the third event was in Ho Tram, which is kind of like a Las Vegas style. It's basically, Ho Tram it's near Vung Tau, which is on the beach about 2 hours east of here. But it's like they took a Las Vegas hotel and stuck it on the beach of Vietnam. It's incredible. So that's where they had their third event. And it's very impressive that Gods of Martial Arts has been able to, only throughout just 3 events, people from around the world are going to see it. And this year, last year was just Vietnamese fighters, and this year we've added Cambodia, Laos, Malaysia, Myanmar, and Thailand. And so we're going to have 8 events, 4 Vietnamese and 4 international. And then they're going to have a tournament, and then we're going to have 2 international finals at the end of the year.
Okay.
And they have you should see this belt. You know, it is, you can see it right over there. You know, it is a piece of art, and there's so much thoughtfulness that's put into it, and that's what makes it exciting. And so a year from now, this is one of the reasons why Vietnam is going to really gain international attention, and it's because they put so much thoughtfulness into it and put in place so much emphasis on the story of the fighter itself. So, yeah, I get a little excited sometimes when I'm talking about it, because it's just so exciting to be at the show. So yeah, Gods of Martial Art. So you saw some other things on social media. What are some of the other things that you noticed before you arrived?
I guess I could say like maybe the food. It was a lot of food that I was starting to look at that was like, I think I want to try this.
Yep.
And then once getting here, I'm like, wow, there's so much like the Mega Mall. I was very surprised. It's definitely big shout out to Vietnam on you guys' architecture. I was very surprised at how well developed the country is.
Yep.
So I know the Mega Mall by, I think it's Van Dine.
Yeah.
It's over by there, and that's better than most of the malls in Las Vegas. And I was just blown away. I was like, wow. My daughter loves to go there and play in the kiddie area, won herself some nice little treats, so it's been pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. And then I forgot to mention another thing that makes Vietnam martial arts so special is like the national pride that they have here. You know what I mean? I mean, like, you know, when you see like the Vietnamese, they go in, they go in to fight, and you know they put every single thing they have into it. You know what I mean? And they have gotten, I mean, it wasn't, the MMA has only been legal for 3 years here.
Wow.
It's only been legal for 3 years. And 2 years ago, just 2 years ago, they had a promotion where they allowed like everybody could fight in this promotion, right? Brazilians, Russians, the Vietnamese, and things like that. So, you know, for the first couple of years, you know, the Vietnamese, you know, they weren't winning the championship. They weren't winning the belt. And a lot of people thought that, like, you know, as long as, I remember an article came out and said, as long as these foreigners are here, you know, these Brazilians, the Russians who've been doing this for a long time, you know, there's no way that, you know, we're going to see a Vietnamese champion. And this was just 2 years ago. This is when I first got here. And this past December was when we had the first Vietnamese champion defeat a Brazilian champion who seemed like invincible. And that Brazilian guy is my very good friend of mine, and I have a lot of respect for him. And this Vietnamese guy, if you watch this fight, you can see the passion and the dedication he has put into it, right? And in this past December was a huge milestone, a big moment for Vietnam martial arts. And because now it says, hey, it's telling the world that, hey, Vietnam martial arts is here, and we're going to make a global impact. And when I saw that, as much as I, you know, I'm friends with the guy who lost, you know, that was a big moment.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm hopefully here within the next couple of months.
Yeah.
Gonna bring 2 guys, Chris and Carlos from Las Vegas to Vietnam to grapple.
Yep.
Looking forward to that, bringing a lot more students from Helsing Gracie's lineage out to Vietnam to expand Gracie Jiu-Jitsu out here in Vietnam as well. So I feel Vietnam is a great place to develop and to bring a lot of international attention to.
Absolutely, and for that, we very much appreciate your support here in Vietnam, and because one of the things we want to do is expose Vietnamese grapplers to international competition, right? So that we can grow the sport here, and you're a part of that now, right? So, you know, these promotions that we've had, there's not a lot of tournaments here. We don't have any ADCC tournaments. We don't have, the only grappling tournaments we have are the ones that people just kind of throw together.
Gotcha.
So we've had, you know, some of the gyms have had, you know, like C88, for example, has put on events, but maybe like 3 or 4 throughout the year. And they're in a mall, and, you know, it takes, you know, there's 8 or 9 hours and things like that. And it's a good, I think any opportunity to compete is good. But since then, we've had some new tournaments come up.
Okay.
Saigon Superfights we've had, which provides between 20 and 30 matches, you know, every 2 or 3 times a year. And then also we have our folks out of the Gracie Gym in Da Nang, which is in the middle of the country. They put together like their own version of CJI. So they built a pit. They built a pit, and they have no gi. They do no gi, submission only. You know, because they want to make it interesting.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
They want to make it interesting. They want something fresh, so people get excited about the competition. Right?
Yeah, sub only is definitely a different type of animal. The pace is a little different. The tactics and strategy, because I've done sub only,
Yeah.
IBJJF, which is point scoring. Even though they were looking for the sub,
Yeah.
it's point scoring if you don't get the sub. And so, yeah, sub only definitely is more exciting, and the strategy is definitely different.
Yeah, for
It's
sure.
a lot more baiting in, trying to, and you're getting after it. It's not so much let me try and play a positional game.
Yeah, and they have it outside on the beach.
Oh, okay.
So they have like a pit outside on the beach, submission only, and these are guys who basically just went out. What kind of materials can we put together? Okay, we got some of this. You got some hammers. You got some wood. Who's got some mats? Let's throw this together. Yes, put it on the beach. You guys want to compete? It's like that.
Okay.
And that's what I love about the Vietnamese. They're so resourceful. We're gonna make this happen with whatever we got, right? So that's one of the reasons why, you know, people see Vietnam, and we've got, just to give you a little bit of history, like 10 years ago, there might have been 2 or 3 grappling gyms in the country,
Wow.
right? Maybe 5, maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit. But now there's probably between 30 and 40 just in Saigon.
That's an explosion for
And
sure.
you've got, this is how dedicated the Vietnamese are to grappling. You've got like blue belts, Vietnamese blue belts, and they're going back to their hometown, and they're just putting a few mats down, and whoever on the street wants to do jiu-jitsu, hey, we're just going to do jiu-jitsu a couple times a week. You know what I mean? And that's the dedication that they have here. And I mean, a lot of these gyms don't even have names. You know, they'll turn anything into a jiu-jitsu gym, right? Office space. I've seen, you know, school classrooms, anything they can get their hands on. They'll do jiu-jitsu anywhere, and that's really, when I saw that reminds me of what Craig is doing. He's going out to all these places, putting his life in danger,
Yeah.
in the interest of growing the sport, like in Venezuela, when he doesn't have to. And that's what's so impressive about Craig.
When I speak to Craig, because I'm always like, why? Why do you do it? What's
Yeah.
the reason? He's just like, you know, there are these places, like he just was in Ethiopia, where there's the one guy teaching, I think it's like 42 students, throwing it together. It's a project. These kids a lot of them are homeless, living on the street, and jiu-jitsu gives them a chance just to put all that aside and just
Yeah.
try and do something. Craig is out there in Ukraine where he was bombed by the Russians. He's out
Yes.
there in Venezuela where you don't even have any like help if something goes wrong. Like he's putting himself out there. He was in Colombia. He's been to a lot of places where jiu-jitsu usually just isn't, trying to expand, especially to the children, give them a chance to do jiu-jitsu. So I'm a huge fan of Craig just
Yeah.
because he wants to give back and see jiu-jitsu as an opportunity to unite the world, not
Yeah.
behind wars or some other type of means, but just through martial arts itself.
Yeah, and let's kind of dive into that a little bit, because, you know, Craig is really, what he's done for the sport is
It's tremendous. He's gotten athletes paid.
Yeah, exactly. It's literally a new era of grappling.
Because of Craig.
It's because of Craig
Not
Jones.
because of the other guy. I'm not going to mention his name, but because of Craig. That's
I know.
why.
And it's like, it's like, you know, the Olympics of grappling, right? You win the Olympics of grappling. You know, like if you win to win IBJJF World Championship, you know, there's a few thousand world champions every year, right? To win ADCC, there's only 6 male, so 8 total world champions every 2 years, right? And if you win that, you win $10,000.
Craig paid you $10,000 and a buck just to show.
Exactly. So that's like,
and no hidden fees.
It doesn't even. You win $10,000 doesn't even cover your training costs. What if you get hurt? Like, what if you're coming from Australia? That's
Man, there was bonus money also with the CJI.
Yeah. So it's incredible that what I love about Craig the most is he's able to use humor and his personality to grow the sport of grappling.
Yeah,
you know
that's
I mean?
who he really is.
Yeah.
He's definitely a jokester, I'll say that.
So at CGI, he's like, oh, we're not going to pay him $20,000. We're going to pay you 100 times more if you win than the biggest promotion in the entire world. And he was able to do that and raise money in 3 months. This is
And
insanity.
now he's doing quintet style. It's just so awesome to me. Like, he's always innovating, doing something, bringing a highlight to it, making it more than it was last time. And then who he's taking on himself, pure wrestling. Like, that's what I'm like, man, okay, here we go. The guy definitely is bigger than Craig.
Oh, yeah.
So if people are like, oh, it's fake, it's this, I'm like, he's taking on the best wrestler in the world.
Yeah.
Big boy status.
Yeah, I know. and it's interesting. And what another thing that impressed me with CGI too that I didn't expect, he's including everybody.
Yes.
He's including everybody.
You got his professor, Lachlan Giles, is bringing the Southeast Asia, the Asian team actually.
Yes.
Up from Australia, New Zealand. I think he has one Japanese grappler, but he's still leaving it open for a trial. So for their wild card pick. I'm like, it's nice to see that you got teams. I'm glad that New Wave decided to participate. I didn't know if they were, but I'm happy they are. I mean, it is $1 million.
Yeah. Well, I mean, given the history, it takes a big person to like Craig to go and in the interest of growing the sport. Hey guys, let's work together. Let's be part of this. And not a lot of people could do that. Not a lot of people could do that.
So I tell him he's the ambassador here.
Yes, he is.
Craig is definitely an ambassador of jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about. I just want to hear some interesting stories because I mean a lot of people like they see like CGI and Craig Jones and his humor and stuff like that, but a lot of people don't see him going to Venezuela and he's literally risking his life, like in Ukraine, that Ukraine video. A lot of people. Because Craig is such a funny guy, a lot of people probably think
and
it's a joke.
people even forgot. So when he went to Ukraine and even did the seminar, all the money he made, he donated. Craig, a lot of money he makes, and people don't realize how much of a philanthropist he is.
Yes.
Craig, all that proceeds from CJI was donated. This year he donated it to the Ethiopian, the nonprofit foundation that he was at. Pretty sure he's still helping that Venezuelan gym that he went and visited. Craig is about giving back. Like, how much money can you really make before you give back? You don't always have to give back to the police. You know, there are other people out here you can give to. The police are pretty well funded.
Yeah.
So,
I'm
not going to mention the other person's name, not taking any shots, but I'm like, you can do a lot better with your status and just work with people who already have it. I like Craig because he finds the people who don't have the support, and he is truly the people's champion. If you want to say somebody's the people's champion, it's Craig Jones. B team all the way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I don't know Craig as well as you do. I had the pleasure of meeting him. It was actually when I lived in Colombia. I went up and spent about 6 weeks at B Team in Austin, Texas, just for that reason. I don't go back to the United States. I don't like being in the United States, right? But the only reason I went back was to train at B Team. That's it. That's the only reason I went back there. So when I went there, I just remember that one of my friends, Nick, he's from Australia. We went up there together, and I remember we were about to leave the gym, and then Nick was like, "Hey, I'm just gonna ask Craig a question about something," right? And he asked Craig something, And Craig must have spent 45 minutes going over that question. You know,
Wow.
and he basically gave him a private lesson just because he really was interested in sharing his knowledge. You know, and that was just like, you know, I was kind of the dummy in that. You know what I mean? But it was just so cool, and what it showed me was Craig is genuinely interested in expanding the sport and really cares about people.
Yes.
You know, and he doesn't care about the money. A lot of coaches have been like, well, I'll show you that in a private, you know what I mean? He didn't do that. He spent 45 minutes, maybe an hour with us, just on half guard top position, you know? And I thought that was really special. And so what are some interesting stories that you can share with us about Craig that you've seen maybe in Colombia and
I just think for me, when he came through, there were probably at least 40 people, 42 in that class that morning. Craig rolled from the professor all the way down to every white belt nonstop. Some were highlight reels that he even posted,
Wow.
like where he does a flying arm bar from taking the back. I couldn't help but laugh as he was choking me because I'm like, how did he just do that? Like, I was in half guard. I thought I was had frames in. I thought I had all the technique right. Then I ended up with Craig somehow turtling me into taking the back into being choked. It was like within 40 seconds real quick. It was,
Yes.
and just watching him, it was so, everything he did was so smooth. And I'm like, man, we were just partying. We were just having a good time, a lot of drinks. And you're in here, man. He was like, every morning, he was like, no matter where I'm at, I'm going to get up and train. No matter how hard I party, I'm going to get up and train. So I'm like, Craig is the standard. Like, people, oh, I partied, I can't this. No, Craig's going to party and get up and handle business. So definitely the standard to set. And
For sure.
somehow it works because he's winning.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah. What does he say when you ask him about going to Ukraine and Venezuela? What does he say? What are some
He
of
was
the-
just, when I asked him about Ukraine, I'm like, yo, they really bombed your hotel. He's like, yeah, man, it was crazy, very crazy. He's like, these people out here doing their best. Like, he even put up to support the Ukrainian freedom fighters about them making their own homemade drone bombers, I guess. So
Yeah.
he tries what he can to support them. And he just, yeah, like he said, he's coming after getting athletes paid. No matter what
Yes.
your organization is, get athletes paid because they put their body on the line. They have medical expenses, travel, training. It takes a lot to become. We aren't even including some of these guys who go to certain health clinics to get performance repair. We won't say enhancement, performance repairing on their body.
Yes.
So it's a lot of money goes in behind putting on a good show. So let's pay
It
the
is.
athletes.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the things that Gods of Martial Arts does really well. You know, they pay the athletes are paid very well, and you know, it's, you know, everything is taken care of. We take care of their travel here. Once you land here, you know, we pick you up, you take you to the hotel, feed you, we do interviews for you, we create like really good content, and then, you know, the prize money is very generous, extremely generous. And think about, I mean, in Cambodia and Thailand, these fighters fight every single weekend, and they fight
Yes.
for $10 per fight. Think about that.
Tang talked about growing up. A lot of those guys in
Yeah.
one championship talked about growing up as kids fighting in those bars to support their family. So
Yes.
to have something like Gods of Martial Arts be able to hand out something significant to impact the fighter's life,
Yes.
it's like what Craig Jones and CJI are doing, like impact. You just had Roberto Jimenez about a couple weeks ago write a post about IBJJF, like pay the fighters. And he's a world champion, no gi and gi. And
Yes.
to be like, pay the fighters. So
Yeah, I believe you have a story about him. Can you share a little bit about Roberto?
man, Roberto, the first time I got to roll with him, they were doing a Pan Am's camp. I think it was 2021. It was my first Pan Am's I was training for in Kissimmee, Florida for IBJJF, 10-day camp. And I think within 10 minutes, Roberto had subbed me 6 times, all from the back. And I just felt drowning. I couldn't do anything. And I was like, Roberto, I just felt so disheartened. And he was like, man, now mind you, I think I'm a 1 or 2 stripe blue belt. And he goes, I didn't win anything of significance until I became a black belt. I lost everything as a colored belt. And
Really?
he told me that, and it like cheered me up. And his mom Gabby had spoke to me, and she was saying same, like, yeah, as a color, Roberto is just hard for him. She's like,
Wow.
don't give up, keep going. You will get there with the correct training and attitude and persistence. And so,
Yes.
as if you watch, I watch Roberto's development from who's number one, his just growth, even in his gi to no gi, everything. And like, yeah, even though he still has growth to go, all of us do. That's part of jiu-jitsu, a never-ending story. But like, just if you really watched what a lot of these guys, Mikey Musumeci, what he started out doing to where he's at now. I've taken seminars with him. Jean-Jacques Machado, even as he tells us, his game is always evolving. I've had seminars with him at 10th Planet in Vegas. So I try and anytime get with one of the, I consider the greats and learn something, just key little elements. So
Yeah. Cool. And where was that when you spent time with Roberto? Like, which city?
in Las Vegas,
In
when
Las
they were at
Vegas.
Studio 76, I think was the name of the studio. I
Okay.
was with him there. They had a Pan Am camp. I try and do camps before any major event. So this year I'll be down with Helson and the team in
Okay.
Brazil before Worlds to get a month in worth of some quality training.
That's right. That's great. So you've had you've more than most people, more than most grapplers. You've kind of seen the world and have grappled in a lot of different countries. Can you share a little bit about what that's been like and what your experience has been in different countries?
So far, I think my hardest grapples when I've been traveling have been in Colombia and in Dubai. Dubai the hardest because they were all black belts, but they were from all around the world.
Okay.
And so they were brought there specifically for their ability. So I didn't feel bad being manhandled out there by those guys from the
Yes.
smallest to biggest. They were some of the best qualified out here. So those roles were definitely different. Uriah, he won actually world gi that year. I got to roll with him. That was an interesting role. Colombia, the no-gi rolls are so much fun. Costa Rica, it was a little hard for me because that was my first time in such severe humidity rolling, so my
Okay.
body was just gassing. But those guys are very tough. A few of them are ADC competitors, South American competitors, so
Okay.
that was some tough rolls. But in a
And-
lot
and-
of places like South Africa, it's still growing. I'm looking forward to here after hopefully healing up in a little bit to rolling here.
Yeah. So South Africa, you spent some time there.
Yes.
Share a little. I've never been there, but my experience with South African rugby players are some of the toughest folks I have ever encountered. Their mind, they just refuse to give up position, and they come into grappling and they do very well. So what is it like being in a gym in South Africa?
It was Gracie Baja Santon,
Okay.
South Africa, East Santon. And it was mainly technique. The classes I was in, they didn't allow much grappling because a lot of them were beginners. So I think
Okay.
it was the later in the evening classes. Usually when I train in the morning because I
Yeah.
have my daughter with me, so to give her the afternoon and evenings. So didn't get to do much grappling, but the guy teaching was a world champion from Brazil.
Okay.
So, and I did a little grappling with him, and he was definitely working me. a lot of smaller grapplers who are smaller than me definitely are about bearing bolos and inversions because it's harder for big guys to try and grab you when you start to invert.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. So Costa Rica.
Costa Rica, they were muscles. They were definitely strong people down there, and they gave it. They were pushing the limit.
In
for sure.
which city were you in Costa Rica?
I think it's San Jose. I know the
Okay.
gym is called Celsius.
Okay.
So yes, I follow them on Instagram. They're
Okay.
out there doing great things in that gym.
And it's would you say it's it's hotter there than it is here in
Yes.
Vietnam?
So when I first got to Vietnam, I was like, Zach, man, you didn't tell me about the humidity. Las Vegas is a desert. It's dry heat,
Yeah.
no humidity. I got here, I'm like, I'm glad I came a couple days early before the match because acclimation was a must. After doing a sparring session with you was what I needed for my body to adjust.
Yes.
The next day, I just spent the day. I spent 2 hours swimming, so no physical contact, but just to get my cardio and keep my body loose.
Yeah.
I'd feel like that pull work was what really helped me not be tight when I was
Yeah.
doing the match.
Yeah.
So
Thanks for taking it easy on me, by the way, during the match. I could tell you were kind of holding the strikes back, and I appreciate that because I'm so new at striking. But my apologies. I've been living in tropical climates for so long that like I don't even think about it. Like
So,
this is normal to me.
I
Like
would
this
say
is,
the most humid place I've been has been Dubai. Or
Really?
Abu Dhabi. Abu Dhabi,
Dhabi.
Dubai, the UAE, man. Nothing like it so far. Then I would go Costa Rica, then probably here.
Yeah.
Thailand was a little humid, but not like here. Japan wasn't humid. Korea wasn't humid. Shanghai was in Shanghai for a little bit. I want to go back and grapple there, but it wasn't humid. So,
Yes, for sure. Yeah. All right. Now we're going to talk about your debut MMA fight that happened here in Vietnam. So just for the audience, just a little bit of perspective. I get a text from Johnathan. What was it, about 6 weeks ago?
yeah, what I want to say, like literally the 3rd to 4th week of January, I want to say.
Yeah.
Because I had
Yeah.
just gotten to Japan.
Yes. And you're like, hey man, I really want to do an MMA fight. You think you can do it? And I was like, yeah, I'll make it work. We'll make it work. So we found a venue and found an opponent, and both you guys very different backgrounds. Neither of you have ever had an MMA fight. Different, difference in age and different in weight, but I knew it was going to be a good fight. I knew it was going to be an interesting fight. So, in what was it? Your 4th day here?
Day 4.
It was on April 16th. At Ram Muay Thai. Shout out to Ram Muay Thai. Thank you so much for allowing us to use your space. Ram Muay Thai is a really special place. You have different types. You have different levels of Muay Thai gyms. You have gyms where if you want to be a professional fighter, you go to this gym, right? Professional fighters go there, and it's just like a Rooster Muay Thai, for example, K1. These are where the professional fighters go, right? And you're going to get a workout. And
Okay.
it's not possible to go to one of these gyms and not be absolutely drained, right? Kind of like a college wrestling practice.
Yeah.
Right? Well, the beautiful thing about Ram Muay Thai is that it's an introduction. It gets people to join martial arts that never would otherwise do it. So we have like mothers, we have high school students, we have people in their 40s and even their 50s doing Muay Thai when they otherwise wouldn't do it. And that's the beautiful thing about Ram Muay Thai, and the personality of Yum is really what built that gym. She's always happy, always bubbly, she's always laughing, and when you go to Ram Muay Thai, you know that you're going to get that experience, and it's so much positivity there. And for that reason, we were able to put your fight on, right? She allowed us to bring that MMA fight. So take us through the mindset, like approaching the MMA fight, how you prepared, what was going through your mind and everything.
So once we had decided we were going to make it happen, I decided to go. I actually contacted Craig Jones and was like, yo, I'm going to do this MMA. You think you can set me up with him and Ari, or let him know I'm coming through? And he was like, yeah, just tell him you're my friend. So I get there, I show him and Ari, me and Craig are friends. He's like, yeah, I got you. He gave me a nice price for training, trained there with him. Mainly focused on grappling, which is why I'm like, my whole game plan was originally grappling, but then finding out he was a striker, I was like, let's play his game plan too. Let me see if I can make it through, because I originally was a striker.
Yeah.
And so, on hindsight, looking back, I definitely, if I ever did it again, would grapple more than strike, because recovery definitely, I'm learning. So, but going up to it, focusing a lot more on grappling. I did a few striking rounds with him and Ari, but not as many as I probably would have known if this would have been like this.
Yes.
But even going through the fight, I was like towards the end of the first round, he hit me with a nice straight left, and it connected. And like my head rocked back, and I put up my guard. I was like, oh, I hope he doesn't rush me, because then I'm going nothing but gonna pull guard. But I didn't have to. He kind of was a little worried about my kicks, I could tell, so he kept his distance. So then the bell rang, and I'm walking over, I'm talking to you, you're like, are you good? I'm like, no. I'm seeing double right now. Actually, when he hit me, there was like one him here, a him here, and a him here. It was 3 of them. I had to close my eye like this so I could focus, and even in the second round, for me to throw punches, I
Yeah.
couldn't judge the distance. Like right now, it's still kind of a little blurry, but there's not multiple levels, but it's a little blurry, but it's way better than it was. But it's like, man, I never thought of that as a fighter when they get hit like that. And there's some they're like, I can't really see them, like, but you're still in there. I'm like, I didn't think how the levels of vision could change, and that definitely affects how you strike, judging the
Yes.
distance. Distance management is the most important thing in any type of martial arts competition.
Wow.
So once I was able to kind of get back to distance management, I wanted to keep it close, so not so far. So I was like, we're just gonna have to maybe trade body shots or something.
Yep.
So every time he kept backing up, it was like, let me low kick, to be like, if you're gonna back up as you're disengaging, I'm gonna get one shot. Because if you're
Absolutely.
backing up, a low kick is definitely the move to do because they're disengaging and it's less chance of a strike.
Yeah.
So
That's something that I never really considered. You know, I went over to your corner, and I said, hey man, because I saw that left hook. I saw that left hook, and I was like, man, that was a nice hit. And you said, man, I said, how you doing? You said, I'm seeing double. And I was like, and you had like 45 seconds before you were going back in there. I was like, oh my gosh, like this is so, I mean, it takes a lot. And I want the audience to understand this. I mean, you're talking about a 42-year-old guy
yeah,
who does his MMA debut against a South African rugby player that's 27 years old. I mean, who does that? I mean, this is, and you didn't even question it. You're like, yeah, I'll do it. You know, that takes courage. And
yeah. It's like I've had a Gracie challenge at our school where the traditional anybody can come off the street. We had a guy come off the street, put him down really quick twice to show him it wasn't a fluke. So
Okay.
I believe if you're jiu-jitsu or you're whatever it is, whether you're bigger than me, smaller than me, I'm always open to challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think people who see your match and see the fight will be inspired. Because one of the things, you know, I actually didn't, a lot of people think I started wrestling when I was 14. And a lot of people think that I've been wrestling every day since then. That's not the case. I actually took 15 years off and then started doing jiu-jitsu 5 years ago when I was 35, or 4.5 years ago in October 2020 when I've been doing it consistently since then. And sometimes I come across these folks, sometimes as young as 19 years old, and they say, oh, I'm too old to start jiu-jitsu. I'm too old to do MMA. And it's just like you said at the beginning of today's show. You don't have to be a Conor McGregor. People think like, oh, if I can't be a Conor McGregor or a Khabib or a John Jones, then I'm not even going to start. You know,
I would tell people who have that mindset, are you going to hit the lottery? Because that's the same as being one of them.
Yeah.
So look at it as just be the best version of you. I'm 42. No, I'm not trying to get in there and win a UFC or one championship heavyweight title. What I am trying to do is get up and be the best version of me every day, whether it's grappling, striking, MMA. I want to know that, like, I got in there and gave them all, win, lose, draw, whatever. Like, can I look myself in the mirror and say, you did what you were supposed to do? And that's the biggest thing. And I'm like, the health, can do so much for your health. Don't look at like right now, the aftermath, but just being out here doing martial arts. If you had diabetes, if you had high blood pressure, I've had friends who have started doing jiu-jitsu that have altered their medical behavior due to being able to grapple.
Wow, that's interesting. I mean, the most beautiful thing about martial arts for me is what you learn about yourself.
Yes.
And it's a mental thing. And I talk to so many people who don't do martial arts and they think it's fighting. And like, oh, I don't want to do martial arts because I'm not an aggressive person. I don't want to hurt anybody. It's not about that at all. It's about yourself and it's about your mind. And if you do martial arts, you can have a more significant impact on those around you.
For me, it's great because, like, my opponent, Dirk, we are buddies now. Like,
yes.
People like, I'm like, yes, you can get in the ring, you can duke it out, get out, and you guys can go and have some food. You can go and talk. You can go and just be buddies.
Exactly.
And so that was nice to meet a friend to make a friend through combat.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
and these bonds are strong.
Yes.
And it's
because you respect each other. You two went in there with each other.
Exactly. And that's one of the beautiful things about just grappling and martial arts. You can literally go to any city in the entire world, go to a grappling gym and meet people that have your best interest in mind. You have people you can trust. You're bonding with people, right? It doesn't matter how many bars you go to, you know, it's not the same type of friendship bond that you make in a grappling room or
Agreed.
you know what I mean? So
Yeah, when you roll with somebody on the mat, you know, like that's just a different person. They're willing to sweat, they're willing to work, they're willing to feel uncomfortable, they're willing to put themselves in a certain position of vulnerability, because to roll with somebody, you trust them not to injure you.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
it's a different level of like, I can trust that person. I've only met them once.
yeah, because like you're trusting that when you tap, they're gonna stop choking you, or they're gonna let go of the
Yes,
heel hook.
not break your ankle, not break your knee.
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah, because I mean, you don't tap to a hook, you might not ever be the same for the rest of your life, you know, and you're placing a lot of trust in that person.
Yep.
When you're doing that. So yeah, so we're toward the end of the show, but just like a little bit, you know, perspective. Anything else you'd like to kind of share? We're in a very interesting time in world history right now, and for that reason, because of the growth of the internet, because of folks like Craig Jones, because of people who are willing to put themselves out there to grow martial arts, right? Because Vietnam has legalized mixed martial arts in other countries around the world, you know, what do you see as the future of martial arts over the next 5 years, over the next 10 years?
I think with something like the quintet going on, where you're bringing people from Dagestan, from all over the world, I think Vietnam has a very good chance of hosting a team at the quintet within the
Okay.
next 5 years.
Wow.
I think with the national pride and the motivation they have to do this, it
Yeah.
definitely will be one of the top areas for grappling in Southeast Asia.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely, and it's exploding. You know, and I feel very lucky to be here during this special time and in history, and thankfully, you know, these guys let me be a part of it, and they let me be on the host of this show, which is, you know, a huge honor for me, and it's also a huge honor, John, to have you here.
Thank
Yes.
you.
And excited for the next 2 weeks, man. We got another 2 weeks,
Yes,
baby.
yes. Looking at hopefully healing up quick and getting some grappling in.
Yep.
But excited to see my friend get some grappling in.
For
So,
sure. And there's a lot of gyms here that I'd like to introduce you to. We go to Team Shark. We've people probably from like 15 different countries. There's a lot of key influencers I'd like for you to meet while you're here. You know, whether you're able to grapple or not, a lot of people are excited to meet new people and new influences here in Vietnam. So we've got so next 2 weeks is going to be a lot of fun. So that's the show today, folks. Gods of Martial Arts Behind the Fight. This is episode 4. The next Gods of Martial Arts event is going to be on 17 May here in Ho Chi Minh City at Nguyen Pham, and this is going to be a Vietnamese only event. And the following weekend on 24 May, we're going to have our first ever Gods of Martial Arts international event, and we're going to be hosting a tournament where fighters are going to be from one of 5 different countries. It's going to be Cambodia, Laos, Malaysia, Myanmar, and Thailand. And this is the first 2 events of this 8 events here in 2025. And 2025 is an inflection point for martial arts here in Vietnam, and we are all excited. And with that, I'll see you guys next time. And Johnathan, thank you so much
thank
for
you,
being on
my
the show
friend.
and coming here, sir. All right. Good?
All right.